The sun sank behind the rusted rooftops of the Alexander compound, painting the slums of Greenfield Estate in streaks of orange and gold. The evening wind carried the smell of fried plantains and dust, drifting through the cracked window of a small room, Matilda Alexander's room. Inside, Matilda, a 19-year-old girl with smooth dark skin and wide brown eyes, sat on her narrow bed sewing a torn uniform. The light from a single bulb flickered above her, struggling against the deepening dusk. Her worn-out dress, pale blue cotton, neatly patched at the edges, told stories of survival and quiet endurance. She hummed softly, trying to drown out the angry voices coming from the living room. From behind the door, she could hear her stepmother, Isabella Alexander, shouting. Isabella's voice was sharp, layered with desperation. "You think I can pull money out of thin air?" Isabella hissed. Another voice, harsh, male, responded coldly. "You have 3 days, Isabella. Pay up or we take something valuable from you." Matilda froze, needle in hand. Her heart raced. She leaned closer to the door, pressing her ear against the old wood. "I told you he'll find a way," Isabella shouted, her voice trembling slightly. "Just give me till tomorrow." The men left after a few minutes. The sound of their car fading into the night left a strange silence behind, the kind that carried danger. Later that night, Isabella stood by the window, her thin face illuminated by the streetlight outside. Her red silk robe shimmered faintly as she took a long sip of cheap wine. Her eyes were cold and calculating. "A useless girl," she muttered under her breath, watching Matilda sweep the corridor. Yet she could be worth something after all. She picked up her phone and dialed a number. "Yes, Mr. Nelson," she whispered. "About our little arrangement. I'm ready. You can come tomorrow night." She smiled faintly, the kind of smile that never reached the eyes. The next evening, Matilda was unusually tired after a long day at the nearby market. Isabella had sent her on endless errands, scolding her for every little mistake. By dinner, the exhaustion pressed down like a heavy fog. "Drink this," Isabella said sweetly, handing her a cup of warm milk. "You've worked hard today." Matilda smiled faintly, grateful for what she thought was kindness. Minutes later, the cup slipped from her hand. Her head grew heavy. The world began to spin. "Stepmother. I feel dizzy." "Shoo," Isabella whispered, stroking her hair. "Rest now, my dear." The last thing Matilda saw before her eyes closed was Isabella's face, distant, unfeeling, almost satisfied. Hours passed. A black SUV stopped outside the house in the middle of the night. 2 men stepped out, both dressed in suits. Isabella met them at the gate, clutching a brown envelope tightly. "She's inside," she whispered. "You'll find her ready." The men entered quietly, lifted the unconscious girl, and carried her out. The vehicle drove away into the darkness. Isabella counted the thick bundle of cash inside the envelope. She smiled, cold, triumphant, and whispered to herself, "At last. Freedom." Morning came. Matilda's eyelids fluttered open to soft white sheets and the faint scent of roses. Confused, she sat up, realizing she was no longer in her small room. The space around her was vast, elegant, with marble floors and gold curtains that shimmered in sunlight. Her heart pounded. Where am I?" A deep, calm voice answered from the corner. "You're safe now, Miss Alexander." Matilda turned sharply. Standing near the window was a tall man dressed in black, his hazel eyes unreadable. The morning light outlined his frame like a painting, power, wealth, and mystery in one image. He stepped closer, his voice low and steady. "My name is Jeff Nelson, and you're here because I bought you." Matilda froze. The word bought echoed in her mind like a curse. Her breath caught, her eyes wide with disbelief. "You? What?" Jeff looked at her, expression unreadable, but in his eyes, a flicker of regret, as if he'd just crossed a line he wasn't meant to. Hours passed. Matilda sat by the window, staring at the manicured gardens outside. Her reflection in the glass looked foreign, a scared girl in a strange world. A soft knock came at the door. A young maid, dressed neatly in black and white, stepped in carrying a breakfast tray, fruits, bread, and tea served on porcelain dishes. "Mr. Nelson asked me to bring this," the maid said kindly. "He said you might be hungry." Matilda nodded silently but didn't eat. She couldn't. Every bite would taste like betrayal. From downstairs, faint music played, classical piano, steady and melancholic. She recognized the melody, Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. The sound echoed faintly through the marble hallways, calm but heavy with sadness. Later that afternoon, Matilda gathered courage to step outside her room. She wore a simple white gown the maid had left for her, soft fabric that fit loosely against her slender frame. Her natural curls were brushed gently, falling over her shoulders. The grand staircase curved before her, leading down into the mansion's heart. Jeff stood near the piano, his back turned, sleeves rolled again, playing quietly. The melody stopped when he noticed her. "You should eat," he said without looking up. "Why did you bring me here?" she asked quietly. Jeff turned slowly. His eyes met hers, steady, searching, almost remorseful. "Because I couldn't let them take you to someone else. Your stepmother was desperate. The men she owed were dangerous. So you thought buying me was saving me?" she said bitterly. "Yes," he replied simply. "At least here you're safe." She took a step closer, voice trembling. "Safe, but not free." For a moment neither spoke. The only sound was the soft hum of the piano and the rustle of the garden breeze outside. Jeff looked away first. "You can leave when you wish. But until you decide, this house will protect you." Matilda studied him silently, his calm composure, the loneliness behind his eyes. She realized that beneath the wealth and power, there was something broken in him. Something he didn't want anyone to see. He turned toward the window, gazing at the sunset now bathing the marble room in orange and gold. Matilda whispered softly, almost to herself, "I don't even know who you are." Jeff replied without looking back. "Then maybe that's where we start." The camera would linger on the two, a poor girl trapped by betrayal and a billionaire haunted by his own past, both standing in the same room yet divided by a world of difference. Matilda awoke to the soft melody of birds outside the enormous glass windows. The sunlight spilled through the curtains, painting the white walls of her new room in gold and cream. The scent of fresh roses filled the air. She sat up slowly, her mind still tangled in disbelief. The events of the previous night replayed like a haunting dream. Her stepmother's voice, the drugged drink, the car, the stranger's eyes. She pressed her palms to her temples, whispering to herself, "No, this can't be real. This can't be happening to me." Matilda's reflection in the mirror startled her. Her dark brown skin glowed softly under the sunlight, and her once simple beige dress was now replaced by a silk white nightgown, clearly not hers. The fabric felt foreign against her skin, smooth, expensive. Too expensive. As she stood, her bare feet touched the cold marble floor. A maid entered quietly, bowing slightly. "Good morning, Mississippi. Mr. Nelson requests your presence in the breakfast room." Matilda blinked, her voice faint. "Requests? Or demands?" The maid said nothing, only gestured politely toward the hallway. The mansion's interior was unlike anything she'd ever seen. Tall chandeliers glimmered above her head, and paintings worth fortunes lined the hallways. Her reflection followed her across polished floors until she entered a room bathed in warm morning light. A long glass table stood at the center, neatly set with silver cutlery and a variety of dishes she didn't recognize. At the far end, Jeff Nelson sat, 32 tall, confident in a charcoal gray suit with the first button undone, giving a relaxed but commanding air. His hazel eyes lifted as she entered, scanning her silently. "You're awake," he said softly. "Please sit. You must be hungry." Matilda hesitated. Her stomach ached, but her pride was stronger. "I want to go home," she murmured. "Where's my stepmother?" Jeff's expression tightened briefly before softening again. "You don't have a home there anymore, Matilda." She signed the papers. Her heart sank. "Papers?" she whispered. "What papers?" "The ones that gave you to me." Silence. Only the ticking of the wall clock filled the space. Matilda's hands trembled as she gripped the edge of the chair. "You mean, she sold me?" Jeff's gaze darkened with regret. "Yes, but not the way you think. I paid her to protect you, not to own you." Matilda's confusion deepened. "Protect me? From what?" Jeff looked away for the first time, his jaw tightening. The light fell across his face, highlighting the faint scar near his temple. "Your stepmother owed dangerous people," he said finally. "They would have hurt you to make her pay. I intervened before that happened." Matilda's eyes widened. "You could have told me. Not taken me in like some property." Jeff nodded slightly, guilt in his expression. "You're right. But when I saw you that night, unconscious, I couldn't hand you back to a woman like her. You reminded me of someone I once failed to save." His words carried a quiet ache. Matilda studied him, the expensive watch on his wrist, the precision in his every movement, yet something fragile hid beneath that control. A loneliness she couldn't quite name. Later that afternoon, Jeff assigned one of his attendants, Mrs. Lowell, an older, gentle woman, to show Matilda around. The mansion stretched endlessly, gardens with fountains, a library the size of her old apartment, and an art gallery filled with portraits of unknown faces. In one hallway, Matilda stopped before a painting of a young woman who looked hauntingly familiar. The same dark hair, the same gentle eyes. "Who is she?" Matilda asked softly. Mrs. Lowell's face grew pale. "That's Mr. Nelson's late fiancée. Died years ago." The air grew heavy. Matilda turned toward a window, the sunlight reflecting on her tearful eyes. That evening, Jeff found her sitting alone by the garden fountain. The setting sun bathed her skin in amber light, her simple white dress glowing softly against the golden haze. He walked closer, his footsteps quiet on the stone path. "You don't belong in pain, Matilda," he said gently. "No one deserves to be treated as a transaction." She turned toward him, her eyes shimmering. "Then why do I still feel like one?" He hesitated, then sat beside her. For the first time, his tone dropped the mask of authority. "Because trust takes time. And I've done nothing to earn yours yet." They sat in silence, the sound of the fountain blending with the evening wind. Two wounded souls, one hiding behind wealth, the other behind innocence, unknowingly beginning to heal in each other's presence. Night fell over the mansion. In her room, Matilda sat by the window, staring at the moon. Her reflection merged with the silver light on the glass. A girl caught between fear and curiosity. She whispered softly, "Who are you, Jeff Nelson? And why does your sadness feel so much like mine?" Far across the hall, Jeff stood by his own window, holding a glass of whiskey, staring at the same moon. "You remind me of her. But this time I won't fail." Morning light shimmered through the vast curtains of Matilda's new bedroom. Days had passed since her arrival, but the mansion still felt like a dream she couldn't wake from, silent, elegant, and full of unspoken rules. She had learned to move quietly through the halls, aware of the servants' stares and the hush of whispers that followed her. Everyone knew she wasn't one of them. Her soft hands brushed across the surface of an antique piano in the main hall. Dust glimmered under the morning light. She pressed a single key, a low note echoed through the room, gentle but haunting. Behind her, a deep voice interrupted the moment. "You play?" She turned sharply. Jeff Nelson stood at the archway, dressed in a tailored black suit, no tie, his shirt unbuttoned at the collar. His hazel eyes were calm, observing. "I used to," she replied quietly. "When my mother was alive." Jeff stepped closer, his tone soft. "Then play again. This house could use a little music." For the first time, Matilda smiled faintly, not out of joy, but because someone had spoken to her like a person, not a possession. Later that day, as Matilda practiced in the music room, faint whispers floated from the corridor. Two maids, Clara and Elise, peeked from behind the door. "Can you believe it? Mr. Nelson never lets anyone near that piano since she died. He's letting this girl touch it. Strange, isn't it?" Matilda's soft melody filled the air, delicate, emotional, like a heartbeat of sadness. Jeff passed by silently, hearing every note. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes softened with memory. He stood in the hallway until the last note faded. Then he turned away, whispering almost to himself, "You have her gentleness, but not her pain. Thank God." That evening, Matilda wandered into the garden under a gray sky. The wind was heavy with the scent of rain. Her thin white dress fluttered as she walked among the roses, thinking of home, or what was left of it. Suddenly she saw Jeff near the fountain, staring into the water, his face cold and distant. "Why did you really bring me here?" she asked, her voice trembling. He didn't answer at first. Thunder rumbled overhead. "Because I made a mistake once," he said finally. "A woman I loved. She died because I hesitated to protect her. When I saw you that night, helpless, it felt like fate giving me another chance." Matilda's lips parted, her heartbeat quickening. "You're trying to fix your past with me?" "I'm trying to make peace with myself," he said quietly, his eyes glistening in the lightning's flash. Rain began to fall, slow, gentle drops at first. Neither moved. Between them, the air was alive with unspoken emotion. The rain poured harder now, soaking through Matilda's thin dress as she turned to leave. Jeff caught her wrist gently, pulling her back, not forcefully but with an urgency she could feel in her bones. "Don't walk away from me," he said, his voice low but desperate. "Not like she did." Matilda's eyes widened. For a moment, the thunder paused, leaving only the sound of rain on marble. "I'm not her," she whispered. "I'm not here to fix your pain, Jeff." He froze, realizing the truth in her words. Slowly he let go, his hand falling to his side. She walked away, rainwater running down her arms, her silhouette blurring in the storm. Jeff stood there long after she disappeared, the fountain's reflection trembling like his heart. That night, Matilda couldn't sleep. She sat by her window in her nightgown, listening to the storm fade into silence. Lightning illuminated her thoughtful face. When she finally drifted into sleep, she dreamt of her mother, standing by the piano, smiling softly. But when her mother turned, the smile vanished and Jeff's face appeared in her place. She woke with a gasp. Her chest rose and fell quickly. Her tears mixed with the moonlight. "Why do I feel this?" she whispered to the night. "Why does he make me feel both safe and terrified?" The next morning, Jeff knocked on her door. He stood in casual clothes this time, a white shirt, sleeves rolled, eyes tired but sincere. "I shouldn't have stopped you last night," he said. "You're free to leave whenever you want." Matilda looked up from her bed, her hair still damp from the rain, her skin glowing softly in the morning light. "I don't have anywhere to go," she said quietly. "But I don't want to be here because you feel guilty." Jeff smiled faintly, sadness flickering behind it. "Then stay because you want to. Not because I bought your freedom." For the first time their eyes met without pain, just understanding. The camera of fate paused on that silent connection. Two souls finding balance between forgiveness and the spark of something new. The morning began peacefully, sunlight pouring through tall windows, soft echoes of footsteps down the grand corridor. But beneath the mansion's calm exterior, whispers started to grow like vines in the dark. As Matilda crossed the hall, she noticed the sudden silence that followed her. The maids who once greeted her now exchanged quick, knowing glances. "Did you hear?" one whispered. "She dines with him every night now. Mr. Nelson's been smiling lately. Since she came." Matilda kept walking, pretending not to hear, though her chest tightened. The marble floors reflected her anxious face, the image of a girl trying to belong somewhere she never asked to be. Later that afternoon, in the mansion's sunlit garden, Mrs. Lowell, the elderly caretaker, found Matilda seated under the rose pergola. She handed her a cup of tea, smiling kindly. "Ignore their talk, dear. The staff here fear change. Mr. Nelson has lived like a ghost for years, until you arrived." Matilda's fingers trembled as she held the cup. "I never meant to disturb his world." Mrs. Lowell chuckled softly. "Disturb? Oh, you reminded him he's alive." Those words lingered as the camera followed Matilda's thoughtful gaze across the garden. Sunlight dappling her smooth dark skin, her eyes reflecting both fear and tenderness. That evening, a formal dinner was held for Jeff's business associates. The dining hall glowed with golden chandeliers and crystal glasses. Matilda, dressed in an elegant emerald gown Mrs. Lowell had chosen, looked stunning, her brown eyes glimmering under the light, her curls pinned with pearls. As she entered, heads turned, not just in admiration but in envy. Among the guests was Clara, one of the maids, dressed discreetly but clearly watching Jeff with longing. She whispered to another staff member, "She's just a charity case. He'll tire of her soon." Jeff stood at the far end of the table, his suit perfectly tailored, posture regal yet relaxed. His eyes found Matilda, and for a moment the world blurred around her. "You look beautiful," he said softly as she took her seat beside him. Their fingers brushed slightly over the silverware, and the smallest spark ignited. Dinner unfolded with soft laughter and the clinking of glasses. But not everyone shared the warmth. Jeff's longtime business partner, Marcus Hale, a shrewd man in his late 30s, noticed the closeness between Jeff and Matilda. "You've changed, Jeff," Marcus remarked with a sly smirk. "Since when do you let guests from the lower class sit beside you?" The room fell silent. Matilda's eyes dropped, cheeks burning with shame. Jeff's expression hardened. "Since I stopped caring about appearances," he replied coolly. "She's not a guest, she's under my protection." The atmosphere shifted. Marcus laughed awkwardly and changed the subject, but Matilda's heart beat fast. Jeff had defended her, publicly. After dinner, Matilda walked alone through the corridor. The echo of laughter and gossip trailed behind her like ghosts. She stopped near the piano room, fingertips grazing the polished surface. "Protection," she whispered to herself. "That's all I am." Behind her, Jeff appeared silently in the doorway. "It's more than that," he said. She turned, startled, meeting his gaze, hazel eyes softened by candlelight. "Then what am I to you, Jeff?" He stepped closer but stopped short, his voice low. "Someone I can't afford to lose again." The silence stretched, heavy, magnetic. The chandelier light flickered, reflecting off the piano keys like tiny stars. "Good night," she whispered, her voice trembling. She turned and left, leaving Jeff alone, his eyes filled with desire he could no longer hide. Elsewhere, Clara, the jealous maid, watched from the shadows near the staircase. Her fists clenched. If she thinks she can steal him, she muttered. She's mistaken. She stepped back into the darkness, her face half lit by a dying candle, envy burning behind her eyes. The camera lingered on her reflection in the window, distorted, cold, and dangerous. Later that night, unable to sleep, Matilda stood on her balcony. The moonlight washed over her, turning her nightdress silver against her dark skin. Jeff appeared below, walking through the courtyard garden, lost in thought. When he looked up, their eyes met, an unspoken pull. He whispered from below, voice carried by the night air. "Do you ever wonder why fate brought you here?" Matilda's tears shimmered in the moonlight. "Every day," she said softly. "And I still don't have the answer." Jeff smiled faintly, his face illuminated by pale blue moonlight. "Maybe. The answer isn't meant to be found. Maybe it's meant to be felt." The wind blew between them, rustling the flowers as though even the night itself held its breath. The next morning broke under gray clouds, the mansion unusually silent. Matilda stood by the tall window of her guest room, her reflection faint against the rain-streaked glass. She touched the window absently, her thoughts lost in Jeff's words from the night before. "Someone I can't afford to lose again." Her heart fluttered, but doubt crept in quickly, whispering that maybe she'd misheard or misunderstood him. Visual cue. Soft overcast lighting, muted blue-gray tones. Camera slowly zooms in on her pensive face, the rain creating faint trails on the glass that mirror her emotions. Downstairs, Clara stood with a tray in hand, eavesdropping near the kitchen doorway as two maids gossiped. "Mr. Nelson was seen in her room last night," one murmured. "And he defended her again at dinner. He must be in love." Clara's jaw tightened. "He doesn't love her," she muttered bitterly. "She's a distraction. He'll prove it." Cinematic tone. Dimly lit kitchen, flickering golden firelight from the stove. Close-up shot of Clara's eyes narrowing. The tray trembles slightly in her grip. The air feels heavy, a silent storm brewing. Later that morning, Matilda entered the dining hall to find Jeff Nelson already seated, reading the newspaper. He looked up and smiled faintly. "Good morning, Matilda." She nodded, sitting opposite him, her voice soft. "Good morning, sir." Jeff folded the paper, studying her. "You don't need to call me sir." Her lips curved shyly, but before she could answer, Clara entered, placing tea before them. Her movements were quiet, but her glare lingered on Matilda. Jeff noticed. "Clara, that will be all." The maid bowed stiffly and left, but her expression darkened as she disappeared behind the door. Visual cue. Warm morning sunlight filtering through sheer curtains. Matilda's brown skin glowing softly, Clara's face momentarily lit by a sharp sunbeam as she turns, symbolic of her burning jealousy. Later, Matilda wandered into the mansion garden to escape the suffocating air of gossip. She picked a rose, inhaling its scent, only for Clara to appear behind her. "You don't belong here," Clara said coldly. "You're just a girl who was sold, remember that?" Matilda froze, the rose trembling in her hand. "Why are you doing this?" "Because girls like you ruin men like him." Matilda's eyes welled with tears. She turned away without responding, walking back toward the mansion. But Clara smiled coldly, she wasn't finished yet. Cinematic lighting. The garden bathed in half sunlight, half shadow. Camera follows the rose falling to the ground as Matilda walks away, a symbol of purity crushed by jealousy. That night Clara made her move. She sneaked into Jeff's study, dimly lit by a single lamp, and placed a folded letter on his desk. The handwriting mimicked Matilda's, the words cruel and distant. "I never cared about you. I only wanted the comfort your money provides. Am leaving soon. Don't look for me." Clara smirked as she set the pen down. "Let's see how he looks at her after this." Cinematic tone. Low, amber desk light casts long shadows. Rain continues outside, tapping against the window. Camera close-up of Clara's smirk as thunder rumbles faintly. The next morning, Jeff entered his study and found the letter. His chest tightened as he read it. For a moment, disbelief clouded his face, then anger. "So that's what this was," he muttered, voice trembling. He stormed through the hall and found Matilda arranging flowers near the staircase. "When were you going to tell me?" he demanded. She turned, confused. "Tell you what?" He held up the letter. "That you planned to leave. That all of this was a lie." Her face drained of color. "Jeff, I didn't write that." "Then who did?" he snapped. Tears shimmered in her eyes, but Jeff turned away before she could speak. Cinematic lighting. Camera shakes slightly to match the rising tension. Light falls from high windows, slicing across Jeff's angry face. Matilda stands half in shadow, half in light, symbolizing innocence under doubt. That night, Matilda packed her small suitcase. Her room felt colder than ever. Mrs. Lowell knocked softly and entered. "You're leaving?" Matilda nodded through tears. "He doesn't believe me. I can't stay where I'm not trusted." Mrs. Lowell sighed, touching her shoulder. "The truth always finds light, dear. It just takes courage to wait for dawn." Cinematic mood. Soft candlelight flickers across Matilda's tear-streaked cheeks. The camera pans slowly as she folds her clothes, her reflection visible in the mirror, two versions of herself, the strong woman she is and the broken girl she feels like. Outside, rain poured again as Matilda stepped out with her small bag. The gates loomed ahead, cold and metallic, reflecting flashes of lightning. From his study window, Jeff watched her through the rain, torn between anger and guilt. He clenched his fist, the letter still in his other hand. His expression softened as realization began to flicker, doubt creeping into his rage. What if she was telling the truth? Cinematic lighting. Stormy night, flashes of lightning illuminate Matilda's face as she walks away. Camera pans up to Jeff's silhouette behind the rain-streaked glass. Slow motion fade to black. Jeff tossed in bed, unable to sleep. The storm still beat against the windows, every rumble of thunder echoing his own turmoil. On the nightstand lay the letter, now smudged from the water that had dripped off his hands when Head first picked it up. "I never cared about you." He reread the line again, frowning. Matilda's penmanship had always looped gently. This script looked rushed, angry. Doubt gnawed at him. Lighting VE tone. Blue-gray lightning flickers through sheer curtains, intermittent flashes carving guilt across his face. Camera idea. Close-up on letter edges curling from moisture. At dawn, he stalked to his study, searching for clues. A faint perfume, not Matilda's, clung to the paper. He lifted it closer to the light. Then he noticed a smear of dark polish on the envelope corner. Clara was the only maid who wore nail polish. "Clara," he whispered, realization dawning. Lighting, early morning gray with streaks of sun forcing through clouds. Shadows lengthen as understanding deepens. Jeff found Clara arranging flowers near the staircase, the same place Matilda had stood yesterday. "Where did you get the letter you left in my study?" Clara froze. What letter, sir?" He stepped closer, voice low. "The one you forged. I recognized your scent." Her face drained of color. "She didn't deserve you," she spat suddenly. "You were mine to care for." Jeff's eyes hardened. "You just cost an innocent woman her peace." He dismissed her on the spot. The camera lingers on Clara collapsing to her knees as he walks away, thunder echoing his anger. Jeff ordered his driver to ready the car. The gates opened onto wet asphalt, reflecting the pale dawn light. He checked every nearby inn and bus terminal, desperate. Montage. Jeff's car slicing through puddles, windshield wipers sweeping rhythmically, his eyes filled with regret. Lighting, overcast daylight, misty rain softens edges. Muted palette conveys exhaustion. Matilda sat alone on a wooden bench inside the small countryside station, suitcase by her feet. Her clothes were damp, hair slightly frizzed by rain. She looked tired but composed, a woman deciding whether to disappear. Mrs. Lowell's words echoed in her head. "The truth always finds light." Lighting, cool gray natural light filtering through fogged windows, shallow focus on her tear-streaked face. The sound of tires screeching outside broke the silence. Matilda looked up as Jeff entered, soaked, breathing hard. "Matilda," he whispered, voice cracking. She stood slowly. "You shouldn't be here. You didn't write the letter." "I know that now." Her eyes widened, disbelief melting into relief and anger all at once. "And it took losing me for you to see that?" He stepped closer, rain dripping from his coat. Sometimes men don't see the sun until the storm strips the roof away. Lighting, diffused daylight with small warm glow from overhead bulbs. Droplets on their skin catch the light. Camera, slow 360-degree circle around them as emotion builds. Jeff knelt slightly, taking her hands. "I was wrong to doubt you. I let pride blind me." Matilda's lips trembled. "You hurt me, Jeff. Let me make it right." After a long silence, she whispered, "I don't know if I can trust you yet, but I want to try." They embraced softly. Outside, the rain began to ease. Lighting, soft golden hue breaking through clouds, warm reflection in puddles, symbol of forgiveness. Camera, fade out on their silhouettes framed by the station doorway, sunlight piercing the mist. A few hours later, the car pulled up to the mansion. Mrs. Lowell waited at the entrance, smiling through tears. Matilda hesitated before stepping inside. Jeff offered his hand. "No more secrets," he promised. She nodded. Behind them, the clouds finally cleared, sunlight spilling across the marble floors that had once echoed with gossip. The sun poured gently through the glass walls of the Nelson mansion, glinting off polished marble floors that had once echoed with tension. Matilda stood in the kitchen, stirring a pot of tea, her soft curls catching the golden morning light. The air smelled of cinnamon and peace. Jeff entered quietly, his sleeves rolled up, holding a small bouquet of white lilies, her favorite. "For the woman who taught me what wealth really means," he said softly. She smiled shyly. "And what's that?" "Trust," he whispered, kissing her forehead. Later that afternoon, a car stopped at the mansion gates. 2 police officers escorted Isabella Alexander out, Matilda's cruel stepmother, dressed in dark sunglasses and defiance. Jeff watched from the balcony as she was arrested for fraud and trafficking, her crimes finally uncovered. "She sold her own daughter for greed," one officer muttered. Matilda looked down, eyes calm but heavy. Jeff placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You don't owe her your hate anymore," he said. "She's already lost everything." Matilda nodded. "I've forgiven her. I just want peace." Weeks later, the once lonely garden was now alive with color. Matilda had replanted roses, lilies, and hibiscus, flowers she said listen better than people. Jeff joined her with a watering can. Their laughter mingled with the chirping of birds. "You turned my house into a home," he said, smiling. She looked at him, her eyes reflecting sunlight. "And you gave me something money couldn't buy, choice." He leaned in, brushing dirt off her cheek with a gentle thumb. "Then choose me. Forever." That evening, as twilight deepened, Jeff led Matilda to the same place where they first truly talked, under the old oak tree behind the mansion. Fairy lights glowed softly overhead. He knelt, holding out a simple silver ring. "I don't want to own you, Matilda. I just want to walk beside you as equals." Her tears shimmered in the starlight. "Yes, Jeff. 1,000 times yes." The moment froze in perfection, their silhouettes framed by starlight and golden lanterns swaying in the night breeze. Months later, the Nelson Foundation opened a new home for rescued girls, named Matilda's Haven. Matilda stood at the ribbon-cutting ceremony, dressed in a cream lace gown, her warm smile radiating strength. Jeff stood beside her, proud. To every girl who was told she's worth less, Matilda said to the crowd, "You are priceless. Your past doesn't define your future." Applause roared, cameras flashed. Jeff whispered in her ear, "You've changed more lives than I ever could." She turned to him, eyes glistening. "No, Jeff. We did." Night falls again. In their bedroom, Matilda rests her head on Jeff's chest as they watch the rain from their window, this time gentle, not violent. "Funny," she murmured, "the same rain that once tore us apart is now our lullaby." Jeff kisses her hair. "That's because love, when it's real, turns storms into songs." If you enjoy this story, please like and subscribe for more of the story. See you again in the next story. Thank you for watching.